Commander Vox Zarek of the Galactic Federation's Cultural Exchange Program leaned back in his hover chair, staring at the endless stream of data flowing across his screen. Humans. Always humans. The newest species to join the Federation and yet the most problematic by far. "Another incident report, sir," said Lieutenant Corax, his second in command, sliding a holographic tablet across the desk. Vox sighed, a sound that resembled a tea kettle boiling over. "What is it this time?" "Another diplomatic incident because someone insulted their bizarre reproductive habits." "No, sir," Kirk's replied, mandibles clicking nervously. "It's about their companions." "Their what?" "Their pets, sir. Specifically the canine variety." Vox's eye stalks drooped in confusion. "You mean those furry quadrupeds they keep in their homes? The ones that smell everything and make those awful barking sounds?" "Yes, sir. That's them?" Vox tapped his claws against the metallic surface of his desk. "What about them?" "Well, sir, there was an incident at the Federation Embassy on Earth. Ambassador Drex made a comment about a security officer Malia Patel's dog, suggesting it would make a fine appetizer at the upcoming diplomatic dinner." "Oh, for the love of the 7 moons," Vox groaned. "Tell me he didn't actually try to eat the creature." "No, sir, just suggested it, as what he believed was a joke." "And?" "Well..." "And Officer Patel broke his jaw, sir." Vox sprang upright, all 4 eye stalks focusing intently on Corax. "She did what?" "A human attacked an ambassador." "That's grounds for immediate expulsion from the Federation." "Yes, sir, under normal circumstances. But there's a complication. Apparently in human culture these dogs are considered family members." Vox collapsed back into his chair. "Family members? They consider non-sentient, non-communicative animals as family? That's absurd. Nevertheless, sir, we have a diplomatic situation. The human government is refusing to punish Officer Patel, claiming provocation." "This is ridiculous," Vox muttered. "I need to understand this phenomenon. Schedule an immediate trip to Earth. I want to see these dogs and understand why humans are so irrationally attached to them." "Yes, sir." "When would you like to depart?" "Immediately. And Kirk's, find me someone who can explain this madness. Preferably someone who won't break my jaw." 3 Earth days later, Vox found himself standing uncomfortably in a place called a dog park in a city the humans called Portland. The gravity was slightly stronger than he was used to, and the air was thick with moisture and strange organic smells. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me, Dr. Novak," Vox said, addressing the human woman standing beside him. Dr. Eliza Novak nodded, her eyes following a small furry creature chasing after a flying disc. "Happy to help, Commander Zarek. The Federation's understanding of human-animal bonds has been lacking." "That's putting it mildly," Vox replied dryly. "One of your security officers assaulted an ambassador over a joke about consuming one of these creatures." Dr. Novak winced. "Yes, well, suggesting eating someone's dog is possibly one of the most offensive things you could say to a human." "But why?" Vox exclaimed, frustration evident in his voice. "They are just animals. Non-sentient beings you have domesticated, correct? Throughout the galaxy, species domesticate other species for food, labor, or entertainment. No one forms emotional attachments to them." Dr. Novak smiled, a gesture Vox had learned indicated amusement rather than aggression, despite the baring of teeth. "Commander, that's where you are wrong. Dogs aren't just animals to us. They are companions, friends, family. But they can't even communicate. They lack higher reasoning capabilities." "Don't they?" Dr. Novak whistled sharply, and a medium-sized creature with golden fur came bounding over. "This is Rusty. Rusty, say hello to Commander Zarek." The dog looked up at Vox, tilted its head curiously, then made a soft woof sound. "That's communication, Commander. Here, hold out your hand, palm down, fingers curled." Vox reluctantly extended his hand as instructed, and the dog sniffed it cautiously before pressing its nose against his skin. He's deciding if you are trustworthy, Dr. Novak explained. This is preposterous, Vox muttered. A creature with a brain the size of a Zornian pebble fruit is judging my trustworthiness. Dogs are excellent judges of character, Dr. Novak said with a smile. They can sense fear, aggression, even illness. They have evolved alongside humans for thousands of years. But why keep them? What purpose do they serve in your modern society? Dr. Novak's expression changed, becoming more serious. They serve many purposes, Commander. Companionship is just one. Some dogs work, they herd other animals, search for lost people, detect explosives or drugs, guide the blind, alert their owners to medical emergencies. Yes, practical applications, I understand that, Vox interrupted. But that doesn't explain why your Officer Patel physically assaulted an ambassador for suggesting her dog would make a good meal. Ah, Dr. Novak said, her voice dropping. You are still not getting it. Let me introduce you to someone who might help you understand better. Can you meet me tomorrow at the Veterans Administration Hospital? I suppose, Vox agreed reluctantly, though I fail to see how meeting more humans and their pets will clarify this situation. Trust me, Commander. It will. The hospital was nothing like the medical facilities on Vox's homeworld. It was quiet, sterile, and had an undercurrent of sadness that permeated the air. Dr. Novak led him down a long corridor to a garden area where a human male sat in a wheeled chair, a large black and tan dog lying at his feet. Commander, this is Sergeant Frank Torres. Frank, this is Commander Zarek from the Galactic Federation. The man looked up, his eyes distant. He nodded a greeting but didn't speak. And this, Dr. Novak continued, gesturing to the dog, is Max. He's a service dog specifically trained to help veterans with PTSD. PTSD? Vox questioned. Post-traumatic stress disorder. A psychological condition resulting from experiencing extreme trauma, often in combat situations. Vox nodded, beginning to understand. The dog provides comfort. Much more than that, Dr. Novak said. Frank, would you mind telling the commander about Max? For a moment, Vox thought the man wouldn't respond. Then, slowly, he began to speak, his voice rough as if unused to talking. 3 years ago, I couldn't leave my house, Torres said quietly, his hand automatically reaching down to stroke the dog's head. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't function. The sounds, the memories, they never stopped. Vox shifted uncomfortably, not used to such raw emotion from any species. Then they paired me with Max, Torres continued. He's trained to recognize when I'm having an episode. He can wake me from nightmares, create space around me in crowds, guide me home if I dissociate. He's the reason I can be sitting here talking to you. That's remarkable, Vox admitted, genuinely impressed. Last year, some drunk kids thought it would be funny to try to take his service vest off him while we were at a park, Torres said, his voice hardening. I broke one of their noses. You physically assaulted someone for touching your dog? Vox asked, eye stalks quivering in surprise. You are damn right I did, Torres responded without a hint of remorse. Max isn't just a dog. He saved my life. Multiple times. I see, Vox said, though he wasn't sure he did. As they left the hospital, Vox remained troubled. I understand the utility of these creatures now, Dr. Novak. But the emotional attachment still seems excessive. We have only scratched the surface, Commander, Dr. Novak replied. I think you need to experience it firsthand. Would you be willing to spend a few days with a family that has a dog? Is that really necessary? Vox asked, already dreading the prospect. If you want to understand why Officer Patel broke Ambassador Drex's jaw, yes, I believe it is. The Parker family lived in a modest dwelling in a suburban area outside the city. Thomas and Raina Parker had 2 young offspring, Jamie, age 8, and Zoe, age 5, and one dog, a medium-sized mixed breed named Bandit with patches of black and white fur. From the moment Vox entered their home, the dog watched him warily, positioning itself between the alien visitor and the children. "He's protective," Thomas explained apologetically. "Just let him get used to you." "Wonderful," Vox muttered. "I'm being evaluated by yet another canine." Over dinner, which Vox politely declined in favor of his own nutrient packets, the family peppered him with questions about space, his homeworld, and the Galactic Federation. "Do aliens have dogs?" little Zoe asked, her eyes wide with wonder. "No," Vox replied. "My species doesn't keep pets." "That's so sad," the child said with genuine sympathy that took Vox by surprise. "Who keeps you company when you are lonely?" We don't," Vox stumbled, unexpectedly flustered by the simple question. "Zoe, Commander Zarek's people have different customs," Reyna gently explained. "Not everyone needs the same things to be happy." Later that evening, as the family gathered in their living room, Vox observed the dog moving from person to person, receiving pets and giving what Dr. Novak had called kisses, a disgusting practice involving the animal's tongue. "How long have you had this creature?" Vox asked, trying to sound casual rather than judgmental. "Bandit?" "About 6 years," Thomas replied. "We adopted him from a shelter before Jamie was born." "Adopted? Like a child?" Vox couldn't keep the incredulity from his voice. "That's right," Reyna nodded. "He was abandoned, left tied to a fence in winter. The shelter nursed him back to health. And you took him in, despite having no biological connection or obligation to him?" "Of course," Thomas said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "He needed a home. We had one to give." Vox watched as Bandit settled at the feet of the young boy Jamie, who was reading a book. The child absently stroked the dog's fur as he turned pages. "The animal seems quite attached to your offspring," Vox observed. Thomas smiled. "Bandit and Jamie have a special bond." When Jamie was diagnosed with anxiety last year, Bandit started sleeping in his room. Somehow he always knows when Jamie is having a bad day. "He chases the bad dreams away," Jamie added without looking up from his book. That night, as Vox tried to rest in the guest room, he heard a sound in the hallway. Peering out, he saw Bandit sitting outside Jamie's door, alert and watchful. "What are you doing?" Vox whispered. The dog looked at him, then back at the door, as if the answer should be obvious. Standing guard, Vox realized, protecting his pack. The next morning, Vox sat in the backyard, watching the children play with Bandit. The dog retrieved thrown balls, played a bizarre game of chase, and tolerated the younger child climbing on him with remarkable patience. "He's good with them," Thomas said, joining Vox. "Patient. Gentle." "Yes, I have noticed," Vox replied, "though I admit I don't understand why humans put so much energy into caring for another species." Thomas considered this. "You know, there's a saying here on Earth, the measure of a society can be found in how it treats those who cannot speak for themselves." "An interesting philosophy," Vox conceded. "But surely there are limits to such sentimentality?" Before Thomas could answer, a resounding crash came from the front of the house, followed by the sound of breaking glass. Bandit immediately stopped playing, his body tense, ears forward. Thomas stood quickly. "Kids, stay here with Commander Zarek." "What's happening?" Vox asked, alarmed by the sudden change in atmosphere. "I don't know," Thomas replied, moving toward the house. "Probably nothing, but—" He never finished the sentence. A loud bang echoed from inside the house, followed by Reyna's scream. What happened next occurred so quickly that Vox's 4 eyes could barely process it. Bandit, the friendly family pet, transformed instantly. His fur stood on end, his lips pulled back to reveal sharp teeth, and a deep, threatening growl emanated from his throat. Before anyone could react, the dog bolted toward the house, moving with startling speed and purpose. "Stay with the kids," Thomas shouted to Vox, running after the dog. More shouting came from inside, followed by a yelp of pain that wasn't human. Vox, against his better judgment, ushered the children behind a tree and moved cautiously toward the house. through the broken window, he could see two unfamiliar humans in dark clothing. One was on the ground, Bandit's jaws clamped firmly around his arm, while the other faced off against Thomas. Reyna was backing away, a communication device in her hand. "The police are coming," she shouted. "You need to leave, now." The intruder not currently being mauled by Bandit pulled out a weapon, a primitive projectile device that Vox recognized from his cultural briefings as a gun. "Call off the dog," the intruder demanded, pointing the weapon at Thomas. "Bandit, release," Thomas commanded, his voice steady despite the danger. Remarkably, the dog immediately let go of the first intruder's arm and backed up, still growling, positioning himself between the Parker family and the threats. The injured intruder scrambled to his feet, clutching his bleeding arm. "The thing nearly took my arm off. I will kill it." He reached for something at his waist, and Vox saw another weapon appear. Without thinking, acting purely on instinct, Vox extended his natural camouflage ability, blending into the background as he slipped through the broken window. Neither intruder noticed him, their attention fixed on the family and the dog. The injured one raised his weapon, aiming directly at Bandit. What happened next would stay with Vox for the rest of his life. Thomas Parker, unarmed and facing a weapon that could end his life in an instant, did not run or surrender. Instead, he lunged forward, placing his body directly in front of Bandit. "No," he shouted. "You want to shoot someone? Shoot me." The intruder hesitated, just for a second, and that was all the time Bandit needed. The dog launched himself at the armed man, a blur of black and white fur, teeth bared. At the same moment, Vox dropped his camouflage and used his species' natural static electricity discharge capability, sending a stunning shock through the second intruder. Both attackers went down. Sirens wailed in the distance, and Thomas Parker knelt on the floor, checking Bandit for injuries, his voice breaking as he said, "Good boy. You are such a good boy." Later, after the human authorities had taken the intruders away and medical professionals had treated minor injuries, Vox sat in the Parkers' living room, still processing what he had witnessed. "You put yourself between a deadly weapon and your dog," he said to Thomas, incredulity evident in his voice. Thomas, his arm now bandaged where a bullet had grazed him, nodded. "I did. Why? It makes no logical sense. The dog is replaceable." "You are not." Thomas smiled sadly, scratching behind Bandit's ears as the dog pressed against his leg. "That's where you are wrong, Commander. Bandit isn't replaceable. Not to us. But he's just a—" "If you say just a dog, I might have to ask you to leave," Reyna interrupted, her tone gentle but firm. "Bandit was ready to die protecting our family today. We have seen him comfort our children through nightmares, illness, and their first day of school fears. He's not just anything, he's family." Vox's eye stalks drooped in confusion. "But he's a different species. He doesn't even share your DNA." "Family isn't about DNA, Commander," Thomas said. "It's about love, loyalty, and trust. Bandit has shown us all three countless times, today included." As if understanding he was being discussed, Bandit looked up at Vox with those unnerving intelligent eyes, and something clicked in Vox's mind. A sudden understanding of why Officer Patel had broken Ambassador Drex's jaw, why humans would risk their lives for these creatures, why they considered them family. It wasn't logical, it wasn't rational, but it was undeniably real. "I think," Vox said slowly, "I'm beginning to understand." That night, unable to sleep, Vox sent an urgent message to Lieutenant Kurex. "I need you to arrange something. It's about the dogs." 1 week after the incident at the Parker residence, Commander Vox Zarek stood before the Galactic Federation's Cultural Exchange Committee, his four eye stalks rigid with determination. Around the circular chamber sat representatives from 12 different species, all regarding him with varying degrees of curiosity and skepticism. "Commander Zarek," began High Counselor Neeks, her translucent tentacles rippling with impatience, "you have requested this emergency session to discuss the matter of human pets. We are all quite busy. This had better be important. Vox cleared his throat, a sound like sandpaper on metal. Esteemed colleagues, I believe we have made a grave miscalculation regarding humans and their relationship with the species known as dogs. This error has already resulted in one diplomatic incident, and I fear more will follow if we do not correct our understanding. Ambassador Drex, his jaw still visibly swollen, huffed from his seat. The only miscalculation was allowing violent primates into the Federation before they learned basic manners. With respect, Ambassador, Vox replied, his voice cooling several degrees. After thorough investigation, I believe Officer Patel's reaction, while extreme, was culturally consistent and even predictable given the nature of your comment. They are animals, Drex exclaimed, wincing as the movement aggravated his injury. Non-sentient creatures bred for human convenience. On my world, we eat creatures of similar intelligence for breakfast. That may be so, Vox acknowledged. But on Earth, dogs are considered family members, companions with emotional bonds that transcend mere utility. A murmur rippled through the committee. Representative Zaxos of the Arcturian Collective leaned forward, interest piqued. Commander, are you suggesting these creatures possess higher intelligence than our scans indicated? No, Vox admitted. By our scientific metrics, Earth canines have limited problem-solving capabilities and no capacity for abstract thought. But my research indicates that the relationship between humans and dogs is unique. How so? Asked Counselor Nix. Vox touched a control on his wrist, and a holographic display activated in the center of the chamber. Images of dogs assisting humans in various capacities appeared, guide dogs leading the blind, rescue dogs searching through rubble, therapy dogs sitting with sick children, military dogs alongside soldiers. Dogs have co-evolved with humans for over 15,000 Earth years, Vox explained. They have developed an uncanny ability to read human emotions and respond accordingly. They serve functions in human society that extend far beyond typical domesticated animals. But fascinating, murmured Representative Zaxos, a symbiotic relationship. More than that, Vox continued. During my field research, I witnessed behaviors that defy simple evolutionary explanation. These creatures routinely put themselves in danger to protect their human companions, even when doing so contradicts self-preservation instincts. Ambassador Drex scoffed. So they have bred mindless loyalty into a species. That hardly justifies assault over a joke. Vox's eye stalk swiveled toward Drex. Ambassador, with respect, you fundamentally misunderstand. The loyalty goes both ways. He touched his control again, and new images appeared. Humans rushing into burning buildings to save dogs, homeless individuals sharing their meager food with canine companions, and families spending significant resources on medical care for aging pets. What you see as a joke, humans interpret as a threat to a beloved family member, Vox explained. Imagine if someone joked about eating your offspring, Ambassador. Drex's scales darkened in outrage. That is not the same. To humans it is remarkably similar, Vox countered. And our failure to understand this has already created diplomatic tensions. High Counselor Nix's tentacles stilled, a sign of deep thought among her species. What do you propose, Commander? A formal cultural advisory regarding human-canine relationships, Vox replied promptly. And perhaps a practical demonstration. Nix's compound eyes blinked in confusion. Demonstration? At that moment, the chamber doors slid open, and Dr. Eliza Novak entered, accompanied by 6 humans of various ages and backgrounds. Each human had a dog walking calmly at their side. The reaction was immediate. Several committee members recoiled in surprise. Ambassador Drex nearly fell out of his seat in his haste to move away. Others leaned forward in fascination. What is the meaning of this? Demanded Counselor Nix. Animals are not permitted in the committee chamber. I requested special permission from Security Chief Morks, Vox explained smoothly. I believe first-hand experience is the best teacher. Dr. Novak stepped forward, a confident smile on her face. Esteemed members of the Federation, thank you for allowing this demonstration. My colleagues and I have brought our canine partners to help you understand what Commander Zarek has been trying to explain. Over the next hour, the committee watched in varying states of disbelief, disgust, and growing interest as the humans demonstrated the capabilities of their dogs. A small beagle detected hidden contraband with a few quick sniffs. A German shepherd responded to over 30 different verbal commands in multiple languages. A mixed-breed therapy dog approached the most anxious-looking committee members and sat quietly beside them until their bioreadings showed decreased stress levels. Most impressive was the demonstration by Officer Malia Patel herself, who had been specially invited by Vox. Her Belgian Malinois Rex performed a protection routine that had even Ambassador Drex grudgingly impressed. As you can see, Vox concluded as the demonstrations ended, these creatures serve functions far beyond what we initially understood. But more importantly, they share emotional bonds with humans that are genuine and deeply significant in their culture. I still fail to see how this justifies breaking my jaw, Ambassador Drex muttered. Officer Patel stepped forward, Rex sitting alertly at her side. Ambassador, I would like to formally apologize for my reaction. It was unprofessional and excessive. Drex's scales lightened slightly in surprise. However, Patel continued, resting her hand on Rex's head. I would appreciate if you could understand that what you said was equivalent to threatening a family member. Rex has saved my life twice during my service. He's pulled injured civilians from wreckage during disaster response. He sleeps beside my bed every night. He is not food and never will be. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Finally, Counselor Neek spoke. I believe we have much to learn about human culture, she admitted. Commander Zarek, your cultural advisory is approved. Please work with Dr. Novak to prepare appropriate guidelines for all Federation personnel interacting with humans and their companions. Ambassador Drex sighed dramatically. I suppose I can acknowledge a cultural misunderstanding occurred. No permanent harm was done. Excellent, Vox said, relief evident in his voice. There is one more matter, if the committee will indulge me. Nix gestured for him to continue. After witnessing the human-canine bond firsthand, I have come to believe the Federation could benefit from a deeper understanding. I would like to propose a pilot program, selected Federation diplomats paired with Earth dogs for a 3-month cultural immersion. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices, some outraged, others intrigued. You want us to keep human pets? Ambassador Drex asked incredulously. Not pets, Ambassador, Vox corrected. For partners. And only for those who volunteer. 6 months later, Vox Zarek sat in his office on the Federation's Earth Embassy, reviewing reports on the pilot program. The results had exceeded even his most optimistic projections. 15 diplomats from 7 different species had participated, and 12 reported significant positive outcomes. A soft whine drew his attention downward. Beneath his desk lay a medium-sized dog with shaggy gray fur and intelligent eyes. Scout had been a rescue, a stray found wandering near a spaceport 3 months ago. The shelter had been skeptical about matching him with an alien, but something about the dog's calm, watchful demeanor had resonated with Vox. Yes, I know, Vox said, reaching down to scratch behind Scout's ears. It's time for our walk. As if understanding perfectly, Scout stood and stretched, tail wagging in anticipation. Lieutenant Kurex entered the office, mandibles clicking in amusement at the sight. I never thought I'd see the day, Commander. You were the last person I expected to adopt one of these creatures. Partner with, Lieutenant, Vox corrected, attaching Scout's leash. We are partners, not owner and pet. Of course, sir, Kurks replied, unconvinced. The latest reports from the Cultural Exchange Program just arrived. Incidents between Federation personnel and humans have decreased by 63% since implementing your guidelines. Excellent news, Vox said, allowing Scout to lead him toward the door. Any word from Ambassador Drex? Kurex's mandibles twitched in what Vox had come to recognize as suppressed laughter. He's requested an extension of his participation in the program. Apparently, he and the Labrador Retriever have formed an unexpectedly productive working relationship. Vox couldn't contain his own amusement, a sound like distant wind chimes. I knew Daisy would win him over. She has that effect on everyone. As they stepped outside into the crisp autumn air, Scout's nose immediately went to work, cataloging the thousands of scents that humans and other aliens would never detect. Vox watched him with a mixture of scientific fascination and something else he couldn't quite name, something he suspected humans would call affection. Commander Zarek. Vox turned to see Thomas Parker approaching, Bandit trotting alongside him. The human's face broke into a wide smile as Scout and Bandit greeted each other with wagging tails and playful movements. "Mr. Parker," Vox acknowledged. "How is your family?" "Doing well? Thanks to you," Thomas replied. "The security system the Federation installed after the break-in works perfectly. The kids miss having you visit, though." "I have been occupied with the exchange program," Vox explained, gesturing toward the embassy building. "But perhaps I could visit this weekend?" "I believe Scout would enjoy seeing Jamie and Zoe again." Thomas smiled knowingly. "Scout would, huh?" "Not you?" Vox's eye stalks dipped in what he knew humans recognized as embarrassment. "Perhaps I would as well." They walked together along the path that circled the embassy grounds, the autumn leaves crunching beneath their feet, and pause. "You know," Thomas said after a comfortable silence, "when you first showed up at our door, I never would have guessed you'd end up with a dog of your own." "Neither did I," Vox admitted. "My species tends to form attachments primarily within familial units, but the concept of bonding with another species was foreign." "And now?" "Now?" Vox watched as Scout investigated a particularly interesting bush. "Now I understand something I didn't before. Something about humans that explains much about your species' rapid advancement and unlikely success on the galactic stage." "What's that?" Thomas asked. "Your capacity to form bonds beyond biological imperatives," Vox replied thoughtfully. "Humans connect with creatures utterly unlike themselves, with no evolutionary advantage in doing so. You see intelligence and emotion in beings that think and communicate nothing like you. It's a remarkable adaptation." Thomas chuckled. "Or maybe we just get lonely and dogs are good company." "Perhaps," Vox conceded. "But I have observed this trait extending beyond dogs. Your species forms attachments to all manner of creatures, cats, birds, even tiny aquatic organisms in glass containers." "Fish," Thomas supplied with a grin. "We call them fish." "Yes, fish. It's as if humans have an innate need to care for other living things, regardless of reciprocal benefit." Thomas considered this. "I never thought about it that way." "Maybe that's why we were so excited to join the Federation, more beings to connect with." Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion near the embassy entrance. A group of protesters had gathered, holding signs with anti-Federation slogans. Most Federation planets had groups resistant to interstellar cooperation, and Earth was no exception. "More demonstrations?" Thomas asked, frowning. "Third this week," Vox confirmed. "Nothing concerning. Security has it well in hand." As they watched, one protester broke away from the group, rushing toward a young Arcturian diplomat who was exiting the building. The security team moved to intercept, but they were too far away. What happened next unfolded in seconds. The Arcturian's canine companion, a stocky bulldog, placed itself between its partner and the approaching threat, its stance wide and protective. It didn't growl or attack, but its presence alone made the protester hesitate just long enough for security to arrive. "Did you see that?" Vox asked, eye stalks extended in excitement. "The dog protecting its alien?" Thomas nodded, not surprised. "They don't care what species you are once they decide you are part of their pack." Vox's communicator beeped urgently. He checked the message and sighed. "Duty calls. The Rigelian ambassador is having difficulties understanding why his dog won't stop barking at his ceremonial headdress." Thomas laughed. "Good luck with that. See you this weekend?" "Reina's making her famous lasagna." "We will be there," Vox confirmed, looking down at Scout, who sat patiently waiting. Both of us. As Thomas and Bandit walked away, Vox reflected on how much had changed in 6 short months. The Federation's understanding of humanity had deepened significantly. Several species were now exploring the possibility of bringing dogs to their own worlds. And he, Commander Vox Zarek, notorious for his logical approach and emotional detachment, had found himself inexplicably attached to a creature that couldn't speak a single word of any galactic language. "Come, Scout," he said, turning back toward the embassy. "We have work to do." Scout followed without hesitation, his trust absolute, his loyalty given freely to a being from another world. And in that simple action, Vox saw the future of interspecies relations, not just tolerance or cooperation, but genuine connection across the seemingly unbridgeable gaps of evolution and biology. The Galactic Federation had laughed at human pets until they saw what happened when you threatened a dog's owner. Now they were beginning to understand something far more profound. The capacity for connection might be humanity's greatest gift to the stars. 2 years later, at the annual Galactic Federation Cultural Exchange Conference, a special ceremony was held. Representatives from 27 member worlds gathered to witness a historic moment. On the stage stood Commander Vox Zarek, now Director of Interspecies Relations, with Scout sitting proudly at his side. Beside them stood Officer Malia Patel with Rex, Ambassador Drex with Daisy, and 12 other diplomat canine pairs. A High Counselor Nyx approached the podium, her tentacles elegant in ceremonial wrappings. "Today marks a significant milestone in Federation history," she announced to the assembled delegates. "When humans joined our community, they brought with them a practice we initially dismissed as primitive and sentimental, their partnership with another species from their world." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the audience. What began as a cultural curiosity has become one of the most successful diplomatic initiatives in recent memory, Nyx continued. The Canine Partnership Program has improved relations, deepened understanding, and created bridges between species previously separated by biological and cultural barriers. She gestured to the stage. These pioneers have shown us that connection transcends language, biology, and even sentience as we once defined it. Today we formally recognize dogs as the first non-sentient species to receive protected cultural heritage status under Federation law. The chamber erupted in applause, and a few barks. Ambassador Drex, his previous disdain completely transformed, stepped forward. The formerly imposing diplomat now moved with a gentler demeanor, his scales a relaxed blue-green as Daisy leaned against his leg. As someone who... He paused, mandibles clicking in embarrassment, who once suggested these magnificent creatures might make a good meal. "I am particularly honored to announce the establishment of the Federation Canine Training Center on Earth. Their diplomatic staff from all worlds can be matched with suitable canine partners." Officer Patel caught Vox's eye across the stage and gave him a subtle wink. They both knew how far Drex had come, from having his jaw broken over an offensive comment to becoming one of the program's most enthusiastic advocates. After the ceremony, as delegates mingled and exchanged stories about their canine experiences, Vox found a quiet corner to send a message to the Parker family. He attached a recording of the day's events, knowing they would appreciate seeing how far their simple act of hospitality had led. Scout sat beside him, head resting against Vox's leg, eyes half closed in contentment. "You know," Vox said quietly to his companion, "on my world, we have a proverb, wisdom comes from unexpected sources. I never truly understood it until I met you." Scout looked up, those intelligent eyes somehow conveying understanding despite the vast evolutionary gulf between them. A small human child approached cautiously, her eyes wide with wonder at the sight of the alien. Her parents watched nervously from a short distance away. "Is that a real dog?" she asked, pointing at Scout. "Yes," Vox replied, his voice gentle. "His name is Scout. Can I pet him?" Vox looked down at Scout, who wagged his tail in apparent approval. "Of course. He's friendly." The child reached out tentatively, then broke into a delighted smile as Scout leaned into her touch. "He's so soft," she exclaimed. "Does he do tricks?" "Many," Vox answered. But his greatest trick was teaching an old alien to see the universe differently. The child looked confused, but her parents exchanged knowing smiles. As the family moved on, Vox reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From incredulity to understanding, from understanding to respect, from respect to genuine affection. All because humans refused to accept the simple answer to what made someone family. It wasn't shared DNA, language, or even planet of origin. It was something both simpler and more profound, a connection that transcended the logical boundaries his species had always lived by. Ambassador Drex approached, Daisy trotting happily beside him. His jaw had long since healed, though Vox sometimes caught him rubbing it absently when the subject of his unfortunate cultural misunderstanding arose. Director Zarek, he greeted. The ceremony was a success. Indeed, Vox agreed. Though I suspect we have only begun to understand the implications of what humans have taught us. Drex nodded thoughtfully. My species has begun research into the emotional capacity of several creatures on our homeworld. It seems we may have overlooked potential connections of our own. Scout and Daisy greeted each other with friendly sniffs and wagging tails, their own diplomatic relations long since established. They understand something we are only beginning to grasp, Vox observed. That loyalty and love can cross boundaries we thought impermeable. A lesson worth a broken jaw, Drex admitted with surprising humility. Though I'd prefer not to repeat that particular learning experience, Vox's communication device chimed with an incoming message. It was from Thomas Parker, responding to the ceremony recording. Congratulations. Bandit says woof. That's dog for I told you so. The kids want to know when Uncle Vox and Scout are visiting next. Zoe says Scout needs to try her new peanut butter dog treats. Vox felt a warmth spread through his 4 hearts. Uncle Vox. A title he would never have imagined valuing before his time on Earth. Something amusing? Drex inquired. Just a reminder that family comes in many forms, Vox replied. Something I believe both our species are still learning. As the conference wound down and delegates prepared to return to their respective worlds, Vox and Scout made their way to the transport bay. Their shuttle to Earth, to home, was waiting. The universe was vast and filled with differences that once seemed insurmountable. But thanks to one small planet and its devoted companions, the Galactic Federation had discovered a profound truth. Sometimes the deepest connections form across the widest divides. And woe betide anyone who threatened those connections, as Ambassador Drex's formerly broken jaw could attest. Scout looked up at Vox, tail wagging, ready for whatever came next in their shared journey. Come on, partner, Vox said. Let's go home.
Enjoy the video? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more exciting content. Thank you for your support.